Mr. Tim Mulroy, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure, an honor.
This is really cool. I want to start out by kind of sharing with the audience that it has been a few year manifested journey of our paths crossing.
Ooh, tell me more.
And I feel like we're these lost souls, and I've really found this connection to you in the last, we've probably known each other for 4 or 5 months now. And we have shared resources. We know similar people. We think and do similar work in this mindset, personal development world.
Yeah.
And we've just sort of crossed paths. And so I'm super excited to dig into your journey today and share all of your knowledge and your wisdom with the audience. So I'm super excited and really honored for you to be here.
Thank you. I can't wait. It's like, do you remember the old Nintendo Wii where you could pick up the guy and he's like, "Ooh," and you drop him over here? I feel like we were like dropped in the same square, and it's like, you are supposed to know this guy.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
I really do. So I guess let's start with this concept that you really live your life by.
Yeah.
And I talk about 10 out of 10 life in all aspects of our life, both in physical, mental, career, spiritual awareness, and in as many aspects of our life, really trying to find balance. But you've sort of coined it as 10 out of 10 and revolution, and you apply that in your business, and you have it imprinted in your business jacket.
That's
that
right.
You're wearing
Yeah,
today.
yeah. It's the custom lining. It's my reminder.
Yeah. So I really want to understand. Tell us about that. Tell us about where that came from, how that manifested, and what it means to you and how you live your life by that.
Totally. Yeah, that shouldn't take more than 5 or 6 seconds if we're good.
Yeah, you go.
No, so I think the year was 2012, about 9 years ago. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that was an election year. And I went through a pretty traumatic experience in my business where there was like a betrayal of somebody that was really close to me. And this was during a time when everybody was complaining about, the current president, the next president, and it's only gotten worse, sadly. But I just was overwhelmed with negativity, and I hate criticism, and I hate negativity. And I was going through this deep pain personally, and I just woke up with this sort of like enough is enough, fed up attitude. And so I called all the organization together on a Friday morning, and they gathered in the main square of York, Pennsylvania. It's called Continental Square. York, Pennsylvania was the first capital of the United States. And actually the baseball team in York is the Revolution. And
wow.
I stood up on this box planter with a tree behind me with my iPhone notes, and a news reporter showed up, and I just said, enough is enough. If the world is going to change, it's not going to be because we get some great leader in that's going to make the difference. And if it's going to change, it's going to start with us. And at the time, what I said was we were going to inspire a financial security revolution, because I'm in the financial services businesses. But over time, that has morphed to a real personal brand, vision, mission of launching what I would call the revolution. And the revolution, which in the word itself, I swap out the I and the O with a 10, is to live your true 10 out of 10 life. And what I mean by 10 out of 10 life is your highest potential. Like whatever the most you could do, if you gave it your all and you weren't afraid, your 10 out of 10 life. And so what I've discovered, or what I believe in my core over time, is that on our own, the best we can do is 7 out of 10. That's the best we can do if we're on our own. And some of my evidence for that is, if you were to look up self-help books, right, there's millions, I'm sure, at least 1 million copies in the self-help book section. And if self-help really worked, everybody would buy Think and Grow Rich, they'd do what the book said, and then they would be rich. Because if you buy that book, and if you do what it says, you will be rich. So why doesn't it happen? Because we're social creatures, and I believe we're biologically in this deficient state to where we don't hold ourselves accountable and we don't see our truest potential. So I think the revolution is really about leadership. It's about one person seeing into another person's eyes and seeing more than that person even sees in themselves, calling that person forward, enabling that person to discover what they truly want, what their true 10 out of 10 life is, building a plan to get it, measuring the cost of that plan, right? Because everybody has to pay a price if you truly want to go to the next level. And then finally holding that person or expecting that person to be accountable to doing what they said they would do because their plan is important to them. And so I think with leadership, with that process, that's where 10 out of 10 really comes from.
Jesus. Okay, I think that's enough for the podcast. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me on today.
Thank you, Isa.
Go ahead, go do it yourself. You can't do it yourself. That's the thing that sucks. So you got to find somebody else to be that person for you.
In coming to that revolution,
Yeah.
in coming to that, revelation for yourself.
The revelation.
What showed up for you in your process when you were 7 out of 10 and maybe dissatisfied or realizing, I need additional resources. I need to hold myself accountable for this 10 out of 10. Like, what sparked that desire, interest, fire in you?
So, call it luck, fate, blessing, God, the universe. For some reason or another, at every important milestone in my life, because I've had a lot of challenges in my life, both family, physical, health, financial, I've you name it, I've had it. But at each step along the way, there was that person there to call that next part of me forward. Now, I had to listen, right? I had to be coachable. And in fact, if we were to take any modicum of success that I've had and break it down, if you were to call my greatest mentors and ask them what made Tim different, they would say he was coachable. Right. So you got to be coachable.
That's a good one.
That leader's probably already, if you're listening, the leader's been in your life or is in your life. It's not like, oh, boy, if I could just have Tim or Ashish, then I could get to they're already there.
Yeah.
But you're not listening.
Not listening.
So I listened. So whether it was my uncle or my manager at the newspaper company or my marketing teacher who had the courage to fail me in marketing when I was a junior in high school because I didn't do this outcome-based project, who pulled me aside and said, Tim, you're hilarious, you're funny, you're great. You need to learn that there's a time and a place for everything. And that life lesson never left me. Or whether it was my managing partner when I started at my company, or my coaches. I've hired coaches over the years. So for me, it was one day waking up and saying and the ex-CEO of our company said, you are who you are because of where you are. And so I realized that I have had the fortune and the courage to have and follow great leaders. And so my mission has to now be to be that leader to others and to grow those leaders for others.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that shows up for me is that you're right, it's not about wanting more, but if you can really learn to listen to what's around you and people need to know that you and I are on this spiritual manifestation, meditation journey together, and we've been doing it together in a small group of guys and gals for the last 5 or 6 months. But what's really beautiful in that experience is slowing things down and being the gentle observer about what's happening around you and seeing those coincidences. And what you're talking about is who's showing up in your life that's trying to tell you something. Yeah. Or the world trying to tell you something.
In nature itself, right?
And you're just not listening.
If you're out too long in the sun will tell you, right? You'll burn your skin, right? Anything you need to know is already happening in nature. And I love that point of if we just slow down and listen, that whole corny, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So, so we need to slow down and listen. Yeah.
So let's get into your current routine, your life, your behaviors.
Sure.
What helps you achieve your 10 out of 10 life now? What are the, daily routines that allow you to keep this high level of performance and share this energy and this vitality with your team? What's fueling you?
So it's interesting you use the word fuel, because I think that we have some really cool methods we can share with each other and really good action steps. But if you don't really have the fuel, you can't stoke a fire that has no fuel. And that fuel is hunger. I think that one of the best things that ever happened to me was growing up in a situation where my parents and family, I would get clothes for Christmas, socks and underwear or the cool clothes, because like, you know, I had to get the cheap clothes to go to school. And so I just had this like hunger of like, well, one, because kids were calling me Nerd Roy. One kid called me LW in high school. He said, because I was limited wardrobe, right? So I had this just hunger of like, I do not want to ever have to take no for an answer. So I got my first paper route when I was 12 years old. And then someone saw something in me. My manager from the newspaper company pulls into my driveway in his red Chevy Beretta. And, you know, he's like this cool younger guy, professional, has a tie on. And he's like, hey, I'm starting this thing called crewing. This is where we're going to go around to different neighborhoods and you could make some extra money selling newspaper subscriptions. Well, that's one of those moments, right? I could say yes or I could say no. Historically in life, I pretty much always say yes. I've never even made a resume. I took the first opportunity that came along. And then I went as hard as I could and it worked out really well, right?
It just feeds itself.
That's right. I said yes.
It's a really good lesson for people to listen to.
Yeah, there so many people get hung up on like, what's the right decision? There is no right decision. You could be happily married to just about anybody. Right? Like, because it's you and what you're bringing. Like marriages, I learned this from Tony Robbins, marriages are 100-100, not 50-50.
Right.
Each is responsible for bringing 100% to the marriage. So that hunger started because I said yes, and then I started selling newspaper subscriptions door to door and making $30 to $50 an hour, you know, as like a young teenager. And so all along, it's like wanting more and believing I could have it and believing I deserved it. Every single person listening at some point in their life had a dream, believed pixie dust, as my late best friend and business partner used to say, there was a point in your life where you believed pixie dust was real and that if you thought happy thoughts you could fly. And the thing is, you thought you were believing a fairy tale, but that was reality. And then you fell asleep and went into the fairy tale, which is the limited life.
One of the things that comes really clear off of you, and as we've spent time together, is, you know, you're in the money business, you're in the investing business, you're in the advice, coaching, consulting business, and trust business, really. But you have this like really fun, playful, kiddish like perspective about life.
Yeah.
And I think when you think about money or money management or people's wealth and things like that, it can be very serious.
Yeah.
It can be very intense. People can come from a place of scarcity, but you bring this like really fun contrast to that in just the way you are. Like, how does that serve you? And how do people react when they have that contrast?
Well, I mean, I guess you'd have to be the judge, but I think the results have been good. I think it served me pretty well.
Dude, okay.
I'd hate to say that it was like the strategy, but I will tell you, I've said this thousands of times over the last 18 years. It's that, you know, Ashish, I've got 2 rules in life. One is always be yourself, because half the people aren't going to like you anyway. Yes. And if you're not careful, you're going to spend your time with the wrong half trying to impress them.
I love that.
Yeah, and the second rule is have fun or go home. So I'm just dedicated and committed to having fun. And if I'm not having fun too many days in a row, I know that's my own fault because I'm in control of how I spend my time and what I do. And so I reframe, I reset, I reload, and then I make sure that my schedule is full of fun. So yeah, I mean, if some people like money management or whatever, that could be a very dry, boring topic, but it's really not that hard. The reality is, again, it just comes down to leadership. You need good, strong, competent leadership because there's no, I mean, I know that's not the context of our conversation today, but there's no like shortcut. So yeah, I'd say it served me well. And I mean, hopefully not more than half people don't like me, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I think Christina, Liam, Zach, and Levi like me most days. Maybe depending on like what energy I'm bringing home. But yeah, I think so.
So good, man. There's so many places that I want to continue to go. What are you working on?
Oh yeah, we talked about routines and
yeah,
that's right. So, and I said that the first most important thing is hunger. Yeah, because like if you're interested,
what happens if you don't have hunger?
Like you're gonna be stuck, right? Like everything in nature has hunger, right? Except human beings, because we have this desire to be like comfortable. Right? Like, but comfort is not a natural tendency. It's not a natural state. Nothing in nature is comfortable.
Right.
the only two things that are universally true are growth and contribution.
I love that.
That's it.
Say that one more time.
The only two things that are universally true are growth and contribution. So if you're seeking comfort instead of growth, that's a path that leads to short-term gain but long-term pain.
And or death.
Or death, right? Exactly. Yeah, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? And frankly, we always are dying, right? I see you have that My Life in Weeks thing over there. I've almost bought it like 10 times off of the social media ad. I don't know why I haven't, but maybe you've inspired me. I think I will pull the trigger on that. But yeah.
I argue with somebody in my life about this all the time. And, we talk about growth and whether growth is good, whether it's in our business or what have you. In this specific subject, it is in our business. But it is absolutely true that if you are not growing, you are dying.
Yeah.
And that is evidence in nature.
Yes.
Nothing in nature just stops.
Right. It's constantly hungry for more. That's what it does. And it works in harmony, but it's constantly hungry for more. And so if you're not hungry, I can't help you. Nobody can.
I love that.
There's a season in your life of being hungry for the cool watches and whatever else, but get hungry to help other people.
Maybe it's not that I'm not hungry. Maybe it's not that I'm not hungry right now. Maybe I'm lacking motivation. Maybe I'm lacking momentum. Maybe I'm lacking self-confidence. What do you say to that?
So self-confidence, it's a key to success, right? Because when you're a leader, people are buying your certainty, right? And certainty you can't be certain and you lack confidence, right? You have to have confidence to have certainty. Of course, you also need humility if you want to be a great leader. A good leader has lots of certainty and can lead the way. A great leader has the certainty that what they know is right and the humility to know that tomorrow they could be proven wrong.
Yeah.
So that's how do you teach somebody confidence? I think that it's experience. If you only ever shot a basketball one time, you couldn't possibly have confidence. But if you shot it 10,000 times in the course of a weekend, even without instruction, even without coaching, you'd have a lot more confidence at the end of the weekend. So I think some people think like, I need confidence to go do, but I think the reality is you have to go do to get confidence.
Well, what you just said was really powerful because what I'm hearing is, and I'm seeing you when you were 12 saying yes to your manager or whoever just said, hey, you want to do a paper route. But like you could have easily said no. And I think what happens when a lot of people have opportunity or say like have something show up for them, they say, I don't want to do that. Instead of saying, yes, I can do that. Let me build momentum. Let me build confidence, right? So something you said like, I don't care what I'm doing. I'll say yes to this because I believe in myself and I can sell newspapers.
Yeah.
And then that leads to another thing. That leads to another thing.
That's right. And I want to pause there for a second because you said people say I don't want to do that. That's one of the greatest predictors of failure is you're focusing on what you want to do. Who cares what you're doing as long as it's ethical, right? But who cares?
This is it. I think this is a big issue, and I talk a lot about this regarding this current generation of people who are, educated about, maybe they have finance or marketing or what have you. And then they look at the world and they are really picky about what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And they end up stuck and they don't take action. And then they lack confidence. And it's this big kind of momentum stop in the circle. So I think that's a really, really important lesson. Like just say yes and build momentum and build confidence.
I applied to one college. I toured one college and I went to that college. I didn't take the SATs until early in my senior year. Like, I guess I should take the SATs. And listen, I had like a 2.9 in high school. I'm not saying don't worry about grades. I'm paying my son a lot of money to get straight A's. It's a little game we have because he's a big athlete, but and he knows he's doing better than I ever have. But it's like I knew I needed to go to a college. I was hanging out with this girl. Briefly when I was a senior, and she was a junior, and she had all these college brochures spread around on the bed in her room, and I was just picking them up and looking at them. I picked up this one, Mansfield University. It was a state school in Pennsylvania. I am from Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, with the ruffed grouse as our national bird. But I said, what's this Mansfield? And she's like, well, it's a small school in northern Pennsylvania. It's a state school, so it's inexpensive, and they have a really low faculty to student ratio. And I was like, that sounds pretty good. I knew I was going to have to pay for my own school because my parents couldn't afford to. I was like, well, maybe I'll check that one out. So my mom and I went up for like a campus visit. I applied. I got accepted. That's where I went. And you know what? I sold advertising for the newspaper. I did 2 musicals. I did a play.
You just leaned in.
I leaned in. I joined a fraternity. I became the VP. I was the IFC president. Like, I brought the happiness with me. I didn't expect it to bring it to me. And when, the school had a meal plan that wasn't serving me. So I petitioned the VP of Student Affairs. I put a spreadsheet together and argued why the meal plan was unfair. I think he was so impressed that I'd go to that level. He invited me into his office, and as long as I promised not to tell anybody else, he gave me a special meal plan. So I made the environment what I wanted it to be. I didn't look for the right environment. Leaders create environments.
Everyone needs to listen to that segment again. One of the things that really is showing up, and it's just such a good reminder as you're here and talking about this subject, is like, we are trained to look for options. We are trained to, they have a college app now. I don't know what it's called, but like, you do one college app and then you just check the box and you just pay extra for every box you check. So like, you're not even proving that you can make a commitment to one thing. You're like, I'm just going to apply to 40 places and see what I get.
Wow.
I remember when I was applying too, people would apply to 16, 20 colleges. And it's the same thing with dating. It's the same thing with jobs. It's the same thing with school, right? We're all looking for multiple options. And I think I'm going to give you my opinion in a minute, and then I'd love your perspective. But
please, yeah.
I think what's really going on is people are afraid of commitment because they're afraid of their own failure. I think they're afraid of making a choice, looking at themselves on what they really have to do to create their environment, to find their success, to be happy, make themselves happy. I'm gonna pick on you for a minute because
Please.
I know that we did some work on relationships together, and there was something that we both processed about our spouses.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And very openly, like, I was super triggered by my spouse, and you were like, I had a similar situation where I was triggered by my spouse. But what came out of that was, we did this workshop, or we did this exercise, ended up showing us that it was all about us.
Yes.
And so that perspective that you're talking about is, the environment is less important than what I do and how I react and how I show up and what I can create. I think that's a lesson everyone needs to take away today.
100%. Yeah, don't idolize me. Like, I've only accomplished what I have because I've had lots and lots and lots of failure, right? I've had as many screw ups in my relationship as I've had good things. And I think what has helped me the most in my relationship is something that our common mentor, Jason Hartnov, has taught me. And any great lesson first really pisses you off, and that because it's so true. And we went to lunch. We were walking back to my office, and we were processing, some beef I had with my wife, one of the million over the years, which is ultimately my own problem. But he's like, Tim, it's because you got it all wrong. You think it's your wife's job to make you happy. It's her job to make you better.
She's your best Buddha.
That's right. Because all the things that drive you crazy about her are just mirrors and reflections of things that you don't like about yourself. And so, my wife has helped me to grow more than any book, any coach, anything. If you want to grow, get married and be committed. like that. Because if failure's not an option, there's always a way through. Probably the 2 most powerful beliefs I've ever had, because I've processed this one time, I really thought about it, is 1, there's always a way, and 2, everything happens for a reason. If you believe there's always a way, you will eventually find the way. I can remember I was a junior in college, and I would fix people's computers for money, right? And so I was trying to fix this one gal's computer, and it was like a couple of hours, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I got to stop. Maybe I got to go get some dinner or something. But I just paused for a second, and no one was in my room. I was in this crappy little room in this crappy fraternity house. I loved it, but it was terrible. And I was like, there's always a way. There's always a way. And it occurred to me. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and the answer presented itself.
You manifested.
I manifested. That's right. And then, even when you don't think you're getting your own way, if you believe that everything happens for a reason, You can accept it, and when you look backward, you realize that it did happen for a reason.
But in the moment, it's really hard to look at that as a truth.
Yes.
Like major failures in our life, like if you're taking a big swing at something, or even little things, right? It's our mind convinces us that, well, that's really what I wanted, but the universe always knows what it's doing.
Yes. 100%.
Trust the process.
Trust the process.
I love what you said that right before we were starting to record. Like, hey, what do you want to talk about today? You're like, dude, let's just trust the process.
Yeah.
I love it.
The right stuff will come.
What?
We couldn't have scripted this.
I know. I agree with you holistically. What advice do you find yourself giving the most?
What advice? I don't know if I give a lot of advice. I give a lot of coaching.
Okay.
And so, but I guess the advice I would give people, if somebody said, what's the best advice anyone's ever given you? That would be to trust the process. When I started my business, they said, hey, we have a process, and if you follow it, you will have everything you want. And guess what? I just did what they told me to do. And guess what? I got everything I wanted. And I think the retention in the industry might be like 7% or something like that of people make it. And at our company, it's a lot higher, but it's still like in a line with starting any business. Right? You know, you have to be a little half crazy to do it. But the retention for people that trust the process is 100%. And in anything you could ever want to do, there is a process. Unless you're the first person ever trying to do something. Unless you're the first person ever trying to do something,
which no longer exists.
Everything, well, unless you're Meta or whatever, you know. So, but there's multiple people trying to do it. Somebody will figure it out. But yeah, if you're doing anything that's been done before, you can do it. You just have to find out what people have done to achieve the success that you want to achieve in marriage, in love, in money, in, sports, or in anything, and then just do what they did. That's it.
That's so awesome.
But you know what that requires? Surrendering of ego. Right? Would you rather have the ego of finding a new method, or the ego of the results you desire? I'll take the results all day.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to like just do, right? Just say yes rather than feeling the ego is what the one gets involved. Oh, I don't want to do that because I'm better than that, or I'm higher than that, or I'm too smart for that, or I'm whatever.
I'll talk to people in my business all the time that are considering a career change. They'll say, well, this feels a little entry level. It's like, I guess if you think starting a business is entry level, I mean, I think that if you start to feel entitled, and boy, I've had times where I felt entitled as well. I mean, and those are times when I'm in pain and I don't grow, right? But if you're feeling entitled, like, you don't really deserve anything.
Right.
I mean, every single day. One of my mentors told me, because if you're in business for yourself, every day you wake up, you're unemployed until you're talking to a customer or a potential customer.
That's so true.
Right? So you're waking up unemployed until you take action and get in front of somebody.
What do you wish you knew 20 years ago?
I wish I knew 20 years ago. I wish I knew that I was healthier than I thought I was. Because some of my most recent challenges this year and the last year, which has been a gift of COVID, right? This pushed me over the edge. All my life, I've been kind of a hypochondriac, rightfully so. I mean, I spent a lot of birthdays, Christmases in the hospital with pretty bad asthma when I was a little kid. I've been deathly allergic to peanuts and a couple of other nuts and nut products. And I had a near-death experience when I was a junior in high school. I think my family, very well-meaning, has always said, you got to be careful about your health. You got to take care of yourself, da-da-da-da-da. And so I think that conditioned me, or I allowed that to condition me unknowingly, to just believe that, like, I was maybe fragile. And so, like, if I have a sniffle, I'm already imagining, am I going to the hospital, right? Or, like, with COVID breaking out in the world, it's like, well, I have asthma. Is it going to kill me? And so I spent a lot of time in the last 2 years in anxiety. And honestly, a lot of times the fear, Will Smith talks about this, the fear of the thing is like all the fear. Once you're in it, like skydiving, like you're not afraid because you're there. I mean, you'll die or you won't, but you're out of the airplane. And so
it's like the thoughts all around it.
100%. You know, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me was getting COVID this past January. And I was effing terrified, right? And I had great coaches that I could call if I had a great coach, Chuck, and I was struggling, and he kind of coached me through it and helped me realize like how well I've prepared for this moment. Like, this is my moment, right? Like, think of all the exercise, think of all the running, think of how you eat, think of your meditation, think of your spiritual practice, think of it all. And like, here you are, this is your chance. What are you going to do? And so I made it through, and I swear I feel like I'm in like this exclusive club now, having been in and beaten it. And I know I don't make light of it. I know people that have passed away. I know people that have struggled with COVID. It's not a fake thing, but it was my thing. And so this past February, coming out of COVID, I got to the point where I was ready to call like the psychological, the helpline for our company, like the distress helpline. I was a month past COVID, and I was still afraid of like, well, what if it comes back, and what if, and I was having almost like panic attacks. And I was sitting in my backyard in a Chase lounge in the sun, getting some vitamin D. And I was like, enough is enough. I'm done with this anxiety. And I said, what are all the things I haven't done that are within my control to reduce the anxiety? One of them was drinking coffee. It's obvious that caffeine is not good for anxiety. So guess what? I have not had a cup of coffee since February of this year.
Ditto on that, baby.
Boom. That's right. And I mean, we just lost all your subscribers right there, just so you know. But
it's okay.
We'll start over with the new brand.
It's all good.
So I stopped drinking coffee. That's when I got uber consistent with meditation, super consistent, obviously, with my workouts. I joined the manifestation group with you a couple months later. So I've just been saying yes to anything that could be anxiety reducing. And I've still had some ebbs and flows. This past week, I was in Telluride, Colorado, 9,600 feet above sea level, which like these, there's less oxygen there. The first 48 hours, I was a little sketched with the whole asthma and, whatever.
Still shows up.
Still shows up. But you know what? Looking back, I hadn't had a chance to beat the elevation fear yet. Now I beat the elevation fear. I didn't die. It's like one of those memes. Yeah, but did you die?
Right.
And so far, no. And my ultimate gift in all of this was early in the year, or late last year, I was talking to a guy from this group I was in, Platinum Partners with Tony Robbins. And we were discussing the Aura Ring. And I told him about my health fear and anxiety. He asked me this question in his Australian accent, which I won't, because he was in Australia, which I won't do because I don't want to butcher it. But he said, Tim, what if you're healthier than you think you are? And so many times since then, that has come back. I changed my life with one question.
What if?
What if? In that moment of fear, what if I'm healthier than I think I am? And because come back to the revolution, right? That one other person to speak life and love into my life. And being open to listen.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
What does rich mean to you?
So rich, in my mind, I've always kind of thought of like rich as money and wealth as freedom. So I differentiate in my own mind rich and wealthy. So I kind of say wealthy is being able to do what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, right? Like the freedom to say yes or no to whatever you want. Now, to a degree, you need a certain amount of financial resource, I think, in most circumstances, unless you're willing to become a monk, or if that's your passion, which is awesome. So rich, I think, is having the financial resources to, be, do, and have whatever you want to do. So that's why I look at it as rich. And I had another weird, if we think about 10 out of 10 in relation to rich and wealthy, for a long time, I thought it was, the jets, the cars, the houses, and all that stuff. And it's fun to chase. There's nothing wrong with chasing it. And then one day I realized, like, well, what if you're just happy and grateful? Like your 10 out of 10 life is in a moment of gratitude. Because if you're only focused on what you're so grateful for in your life, and if you're listening to this right now, you have ears. And if you're reading it on, if you're reading the captions, you have eyes. Right? Like if you have breath and if you're alive, you have breath in your lungs. So 10 out of 10 life, I think, is this interesting paradox and duality of you can live a 10 out of 10 life in this moment if you return to gratitude, And you can live a 10 out of 10 life if you recognize that you have unlimited potential and you find somebody to lead you there.
You know what? I had a coach one time tell me when we were talking about the same exact subject about, finding what in your life you can be grateful for. And he processed this with me, and he's like, what's the first thing you can be grateful for the moment you wake up? And I'm like, my pillow. And I have this affliction with my pillow, so that every single morning I am absolutely in love with my pillow, and that's the one thing that sets me on that trajectory. Like, if I can be this grateful for a freaking pillow, then imagine what else I can create and what else I can have. And like, it's the little things, right?
You're totally going to drop a link in the description for your pillow, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
I don't even know what brand it is at this point, but it's just saying yes and choosing and finding what we can be grateful for. So
I love that.
Yeah. It's the simple things.
Or looking at the stars. Like, was it last night? I looked up the stars from our balcony in my bedroom, and I was like, I swear to God, there's no way this is real. Yeah. Like, this is the Truman Show. There's no way there's an infinite universe, and I'm looking at light that's millions of years old. Like, this is a set. It has to be. I'm just blown away, even by the fact of how, like, just the geometry of the moon and the earth and the sun, and the
world is really magic, man. I mean, there's so many things to be so grateful for. I was listening to something with Elon the other day with Elon Musk, and he was talking about the metaverse and what is the probability that this world is real? And he was literally telling people that depending on the resolution, like within a couple of decades, we could get to a place where we can't recognize reality.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, well, how do we know this is a reality?
Right.
It's just pretty amazing, mind-blowing stuff about, and it's all in between the ears.
The Matrix.
It's all in between the ears, all of it.
Well, we are creating our reality every day. Right? Yeah, there is no the reality.
Right.
There's your reality.
That's right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so there is the very real sense that we are creating technology capable of manufacturing reality that we can't distinguish.
Correct.
Or we're living in it. And then there's the other tangential fact that, like, whether we're in an artificial reality or a real one, the perception of it and the meaning we're making of it is our reality. It's the meaning that changes reality, not the facts.
That's right.
We all have facts that we're looking at. Like, oh, boo-hoo, I grew up, I was in the hospital, and I couldn't do what other kids could do, and I made the B teams instead of the A team, and thank God kids made fun of me. Thank God, because it forced me to find confidence inside of myself, because I couldn't find it in anybody else other than my best friend, who I met in 6th grade, and we're still like brothers to this day. But like, thank God I didn't find all that acceptance elsewhere, because I had to find it inside. Man, it was freaking painful. It was terrible.
It's terrible.
But it was awesome. If I'd had the childhood I'd wanted, I wouldn't be the man that I am.
Yeah.
And if somebody's still sitting, in the sadness of some fact in their life they wish were different, they're not recognizing what that fact was supposed to do to grow them, and more importantly, how growing from that fact can help them to contribute to others.
Spiritual sandpaper.
That's it.
As we wrap up the year, how do you goal plan? Are you focusing on 2022 and what that's going to look like for you? Either what are the goals you want to have for yourself, or how do you look forward and plan? What's your process for that?
So, in the business, we have a planning process. We went on a planning retreat to Joshua Tree a couple of weeks ago and established our priorities for the business. And now we're kind of building out the pyramid underneath so there's the clearly defined goal, the strategies, and then the tactics underneath it. So we've got that whole business planning process, and that's cool or fun or whatever. But like, what I get more excited about is how, in January, I'll go down to the beach, because we live in this awesome area, but I go down to the beach and I take this will be the 3rd or 4th year in a row. I use this Tony Robbins tool. It's called The Power of Momentum. It's a PDF, and you could probably Google it and find it online, but I think it's 10 or 12 pages long, and it's all about, like, You go back and debrief this year, like what were the magical moments of this year? What do you want to happen again? What do you not want to have happen again? And then there's a process in there. It's like write down every goal you could imagine for the rest of your life, and then write down in 1 year or 3 years or 5 years that you think it could happen. And it's this whole thing gets boiled down into like your top 3 or 4 priorities for the year. And weirdly enough, like this was the first year a lot of my top priorities were about relationships and feeling and a little less like financial or quantitative. And it's funny, just when I follow that process, I don't even have to pull the thing out. I carry it around. I carry it around with me all the time. Here, check this out.
It's vibrationally connected to you.
It is. So I've got this folder. I think it's one of my wife's folders. It's gold. I don't know, but it says my 10 out of 10 life. And so,
wow, and you just have it in there, and
yeah, it's just with me at all times, right? Yeah, there it is, the power of momentum, 2021. So, and I think I have 2020 and 2019 behind it, but
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
And so many resources are free, right, Tim? Like there's so much stuff out there, and God bless Tony Robbins helping so many people around the world and giving all this stuff for free. And even if he doesn't give it, I'm sure some user has loaded it on the website.
Yeah.
Or Google. You can.
I'm sure
Google
he's been ripped off more than you could imagine, but he could still fill a stadium at $5,000 a ticket.
But he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. That's right.
That's not the point.
That's right. So it's whatever your process is, have a process. And that process should involve gratitude, right? Vision. And then you need to come up with some tangible steps. And like Tony says, and if you don't know what to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I want, but I don't know what to do. Do anything, literally anything. And if that doesn't work, then what do you do, Ashish?
Try again.
That's right. Try something else. And how about if that didn't work?
I do this thing sometimes in the morning, and like in regards to working out and getting into routine, if I'm not feeling motivated to work out, I've figured out the least resistance is to do jumping jacks.
Oh.
I don't need equipment. I can be in my pajamas. I don't have to have any like pre-workout drink, nothing. I could just like literally be like, if I want to create momentum, I can literally do jumping jacks, or as Tony does, the breathing.
Priming.
Priming, I'm pumping my hands.
Maybe we should finish with what our morning routine is.
Okay,
keep going. I thought you were finished.
You start.
So I'll start?
Yeah.
Okay, so I normally get up about 4:05 a.m. Monday through Friday. And currently I've been doing this 23-minute Joe Dispenza morning meditation.
That's right. You mentioned
drink some water. First, right when you wake up, drink some water. I think Hal Elrod in The Miracle Morning is where I first learned that. Drink a big glass of water, get your body going. Then I make my mud water. I used to make bulletproof coffee. Now I make bulletproof mud water. I'm a big fan. And then I'll journal. And then if it's Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, I have a trainer waiting. And he comes right in my garage, and we work out together for an hour. And then my wife works out with him from 6 to 7. I'm 5 to 6. And then after that, I'll watch like my little mind movie, vision movie, get ready, make my breakfast, get out of there. But I need like a solid 2.5 hours.
I agree.
To really, and 2.5 is like I'm jamming. 3 is ideal. If I can get 3 hours,
you do it at your pace.
Exactly, because I have the 5 things. I also do, no matter what, even if I'm running or working out with a trainer. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday, I also do karate in the evenings now. Yes, literally Shotokan karate. Like I have a gi and a belt and everything. But every day I also have this other habit where I'm doing 20 chest to floor push-ups and then 15 pull-ups, like 5 sets of 3. And I just work on getting those better and better and better. Oh, and 1 minute of dead hang.
Why are you doing karate? Where did that show up for you?
Yeah, well, first it showed up because I was a nerd and picked on and bullied. And so I did it a year in high school because I was more for like self-defense after this kid kind of attacked me in the hallway at school. And then I did it 10 years ago for like exercise. I gained a lot of weight when I first started in business, and then kind of lost a lot of weight in 2009, and then sort of gained and lost the same 10 pounds. And now I'm going back for the more like the true martial art of it, the character, the spiritual aspect of refining your character. I'm not trying to like beat anybody up or anything. I'm just trying to beat up the me that gets in the way of me helping as many people as I can and living my 10 out of 10 life. So that's what I'm doing. I'm kicking my own ass, like in Liar Liar with Jim Carrey in the bathroom.
I so appreciate you being here, man. This was really an honor and such a good conversation. So many good knowledge drops. I really encourage the audience to listen to that multiple times. There was some really powerful stuff there. So I really appreciate you being here, brother.
Thanks, brother. It's a gift.
Fun.
It's really a gift, and you're a gift. And so thank you for, I don't know if any of you know this, but this is your passion project, right? Like this is your gift, because you said this, we're lucky, right? Like, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching over a lot of years, and not everybody has access to that yet. Most powerful word is yet. Not everybody has access to that yet. So like, this is just a joy and an honor to share this with you.
So awesome, man. Thank you so much.